Welcome back to Kittens and Crochet YouTube channel. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this pig crochet cutie. So you should already have the body of the pig made. If you have not made it yet, check out the description and find the link for part 1, which will be how to make the body. To make this pig, you're going to need Red Heart Super Saver petal pink yarn or equivalent. Just match whatever color you use to make the body. You'll need a small amount of black cotton fair yarn or equivalent. You will need a 4.5mm crochet hook, a marker. You'll need some pins, some scissors, a yarn needle, and you'll need a set of eyes, which I'm not really sure how you measure eyes, but these are 5/16 of an inch in diameter. You'll also need some fabric glue to glue them in. If you're making this for smaller children, you might just consider using the cotton fair yarn to stitch eyes in place instead. You will also need a little bit of washable stuffing. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to make is the snout. So go ahead and get your yarn and make a magic circle with 6 stitches. Alright, for row 2 we're going to put 2 single crochet in each stitch. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's the end of row 2. For row 3, we're going to put 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to put 3 single crochet in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now in the next stitch we're going to put 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and now we have 2 stitches left. We're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of those 2 stitches. So that's the end of row 3, and you should now have 16 stitches around. For row 4, we're going to do 1 row even, but we're only going to work in the front loops. So if you've never done this before, if you look at each stitch, there is 2 loops. There's a front loop and a back loop. So you are only going to go in the front loop. So just ignore that back loop and just go in the front loop. And we're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of the front loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 1 in this last front loop for 16. So that's the end of row 4. You still have 16 stitches around. Row 5 is going to be 1 row even, but you're also catching the remaining back loops from the previous row. So how we only did the front loops, there's these back loops. So you're going to go in this next stitch, and then you're going to look behind, and you're going to catch that back loop that was left behind. And you're going to pull through all 3 loops. And we're going to do that all the way around. So that makes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So that's the end of row 5. Row 6 is just going to be 1 row even, just regular. So under both front and back loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So then go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch and cut yourself a long yarn tail for attaching. So here's your little snout. So go ahead and set that aside for now, and we'll move on to the ears. To start the ear, you're going to make a magic circle with 4 stitches. And for row 2, it's going to be 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the next stitch, which is going to be tight since there's only 4 stitches. So we got 1 in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 into the second. So go ahead and roll your work because it was rolled inside out. And that's the end of row 2. You should now have 6 stitches around. Row 3 is the same. It's 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the second stitch. So 1 in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 in this last stitch. And that's the end of row 3, and you should now have 9 stitches. Row 4 is going to be 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So 1 in the first and 1 in the second, and then 2 into the third. One in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 into the third. One in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 into the last stitch. And that's the end of row 4, and you should now have 12 stitches around. So the next 3 rows, rows 5 through 7, is just going to be 1 row even, so 1 single crochet in each of the 12 stitches. So this is row 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's the end of row 5. This is row 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that's the end of row 6, so we now have 1 row left, row 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So then go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch and cut yourself a long yarn tail for attaching. go ahead and pull your center yarn tail to make sure that hole is closed. And you can also trim your center yarn tail down. Okay, your first ear is made, so go ahead and set it aside and we'll work on the second ear. To start the ear, you're going to make a magic circle with 4 stitches. And for row 2, it's going to be 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the next stitch, which is going to be tight since there's only 4 stitches. So we got 1 in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 into the second. So go ahead and roll your work because it was rolled inside out. And that's the end of row 2. You should now have 6 stitches around. Row 3 is the same. It's 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the second stitch. So 1 in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 into the second. One in the first and 2 in this last stitch. And that's the end of row 3, and you should now have 9 stitches. Row 4 is going to be 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So 1 in the first and 1 in the second and then 2 into the third. One in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 into the third. One in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 into the last stitch. And that's the end of row 4, and you should now have 12 stitches around. So the next 3 rows, rows 5 through 7, is just going to be 1 row even, so 1 single crochet in each of the 12 stitches. So this is row 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's the end of row 5. This is row 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that's the end of row 6, so we now have one row left, row 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So then go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch and cut yourself a long yarn tail for attaching. Go ahead and pull your center yarn tail to make sure that hole is closed. And you can also trim your center yarn tail down. Alright, so now both ears are made. Go ahead and set this one aside and we'll move on to the tail. Okay, the last thing we need to make is the tail. So you're going to start with a long starting yarn tail and make a slip knot. And then go ahead and chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the second chain from the hook, you're going to place 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. And then in the next chain we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. The next chain 3. 1, 2, 3. The next chain 2. 1, 2. The next chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then this last chain 2. 1 and 2. So go ahead and leave yourself about an equally long ending yarn tail and pull that through. And here's your little piggy tail. So go ahead and set that aside, and now we will begin assembling. So the first thing we're going to attach is the snout, but we got to get it ready first. So make sure that center circle is completely closed up, and then you can cut your center yarn tail shorter. Now we're going to add some nostrils. So go ahead and get a small amount of this cotton fairy yarn. And go ahead and put it on a yarn needle. And just double it up onto the yarn needle. Just like that. So the nostrils are going to go in the space between rows 2 and 3. So with your yarn tail facing down, this first row is 1 and this is 2. So this space right here in between 2 and 3, that's where you're going to go in. So just go from behind and pop out on either side, and then pull, but leave a little bit of the black yarn still in there. So then go up just one space and pull through. Just like that. And then just do it the exact same thing on the opposite side. And then you can make this as thick as you'd like it. So I'm going to go through and double up. And there's my nostrils. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this free. And then I'm going to lightly knot the ends together here. Peanut. Peanut wants to say hello. So here is your snout. Peanut thinks it's his. So if you want, you can go ahead and cut these strands a little shorter. And then add a little bit of stuffing to it. And just like that. And now we can attach it to the pig. Okay, so the snout is going to go over top of row 9. So if you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then just go ahead and pin it in a few places. And then before you attach, just check it out, make sure you're happy with the placement and what it looks like. And then we can go ahead and begin attaching. So I'm just going in the snout and then straight into the head. And then back through that same hole in the head and up through the snout. Peanut, here's yours. And we're just going to repeat this all the way around. Okay, then when you make it back to where you started, just go ahead and knot off on one of these stitches of the snout. And just go back in and just take it out the back. And then just go ahead and cut it free. So here is your snout attached. So let's go ahead and move on to the ears. So the ear's gonna go over top of row 4. So just count 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want it to be over top of that row. And you want it to be kind of centered with the arm, maybe just a smidge more forward. So I'm going to go in the top and then pop out the bottom here. And just kind of lightly push your ear down. And you come up through the head and through the ear. This way it's held in place for the most part while you attach the rest of it. Okay. So now you're just going to attach this the same way you attached the snout. Okay, so once your ear's attached, if you're satisfied with it, go ahead and knot off on a back stitch. And then just go ahead and pop the yarn tail out the back of the head and just leave it there for now. And now go ahead and attach your second ear, and it's going to be attached the same exact way. Just make sure that it lines up nice with the first ear that you placed on. Alright, so I'll go ahead and attach this one off camera, and I'll meet you back here for the eyes. Okay, so now I have both of my ears attached. I knotted off, and then I just brought this other yarn tail to meet up with the first yarn tail of the ear, and then I'm just going to tie them together. And put them on the same yarn needle. And I'm just going to take them down through the body and cut them free. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the eyes. So the eyes are going to go right where the snout meets the head, and they're going to be spaced about 4 spaces apart. So right where that snout is attaching to the head, that's where I'm going to place my eyes. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you want, you can always stitch the eyes in. But I'm using these plastic eyes, and I'm going to use a little bit of glue and glue them in place. So I'm gonna just kind of twist them in here. And then do the same thing with the other one. A little bit of glue on the end and place it where I want it, and just kind of twist it in slowly. That way the glue is getting all over the eye. And then once you have it in place, just kind of push it down, and there's your eyes. So you'll have to set the pig aside after we're completely done for the recommended dry time, depending on what glue you're using. So let's go ahead and move on to the tail. So the last thing we're adding to our pig is a tail. So we're going to count from the bottom foot up, and we're going for rows 10 and 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so this is approximately, you can place it wherever you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're going to go right in between rows 10 and 11. And take the other side and do the same thing. Just like that. And now that it's on there, I'm going to go ahead and go through a stitch of the tail and back down into the body and away. And now I'll take the other yarn tail and I'll go back in and go through a stitch of the tail, back through the body and away. So then just make sure that your tail is nice and secured and attached. And if you're satisfied with it, go ahead and have your 2 yarn tails meet up and tie them together. And then we're just going to take this, and I'm just going to take it out through a leg. And cut it free. And now your pig is made. So if you like this tutorial, please like, share, and subscribe to my page. Also check out my playlist to find other tutorials. Thank you for watching.